Alright everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today is Tuesday, September 1st. We're going to read some inyanim on Elul and Rosh Hashanah from the Divrei Yechezkel of Rav Yechezkel Shraga Halberstam, who is the son of the Divrei Chaim of Sanz. He is a very holy Tzaddik, very into halacha. I started getting into his Torahs like 2 years ago, and I went out and I bought this book. And he has very interesting stuff in here. And in the back over here, they have a lot of different pieces on some of his stories and customs and minhagim and different things that they used to do in Shinover. He's very, very mapping on a lot of different things. And we're just going to talk about a few certain inyanim over here that he talks about in Elul and Rosh Hashanah. And just before we start, it's also known that he disagreed with his father about certain things in different things. They are both very strict in certain parts of halacha, and he disagreed with his father about certain things. And he said one time that if somebody tries to figure out why I'm in machlokes with my father about certain things, it's not going to be good for that person particularly, meaning that there's certain reasons why I'm doing it, and you don't have to know them. But he did say that his father was a big tzaddik. Obviously, he was a Divrei Chaim, of course, but they disagreed about certain things. But anyway, enough with that. We can just talk about Elul and Rosh Hashanah. It's getting closer. So the first piece over here talks about how one of the Hasidim tells over in Shinover that the Rav Chodesh of Shinover would say today in Elul, every day after davening, we say sorry, sometimes I stutter. It says we say the Psalm 27. It is the David Hashem Oiri, Tehillim 27. I think that's what it is in Chodesh. Even though his father, from Sanz, would not say it, and also other Rabbanim from Rapshitz, where they came from, would not say it. And the Shinover said, in truth, I have 18 reasons why not to say this Tehillim after davening in Chodesh, but against this I have one tam that beats all of them. And what is that tam? What's that reasoning? And the reasoning, he says, is because the minhag of Kol Yisrael is to say it. The minhag of Kol Yisrael is to say this Tehillim after davening. So he said, because the minhag Yisrael is very important to keep the customs of Jews. So that's why he said it. Okay? He says over here, Siper Rabbeinu, Hagoyin HaKodesh Rav Yeshua Buxbaum, who was the Av Beistin of Kalanta. He said when he was a bacher, he would go on Leil Rosh Hashanah to be with the Shinover, I guess by the Tish or whatever it was. And he saw one time that the Tzaddik, the Shinover, took out the eye of the fish, because you're supposed to have a fish head on the table. He took out the eye of the fish on Rosh Hashanah, and in that moment, Uberega Kimemra also al machshavta ki bivade remez nala yesh bazen. Hashem Yisbarach yashgiach alinu be'enei pekicha ke'en hadogim she'en alem kisoy. And the tzaddik didn't say anything. The Shinover didn't say anything. But this guy, this bacher who was here, this guy in HaKadosh Rav Yeshua Buxbaum, it came into his mind when he saw this that this is mamash a remez to something even higher, that Hashem is watching us at all times, ke'en hadogim, like a fish that doesn't have a covering on his eyes. The fish eyes are always open. Hashem's eyes are always open. Kibiyachol. And right after this thought came into his head, the Shinover put down Hechzer HaTzadik Roish La'achore Kisoy V'nana B'kol. He looked back, or he put his head back to the chair, and he said in a loud voice, Der Bacher hat recht. The Bacher is right. And except for me and the Shinover, this Bacher is talking, nobody knows what was going on in that exchange. because he was reading my mind. So obviously nobody else could know about that. So that's also pretty wild. It's a good remez for the fisheye. Kriyas HaTorah by Rabbeinu of Shinever was an avodah gedolah, and in certain parts, when they would lean on Rosh Hashanah, they would hit their hands on the table very hard. This was also by his son, the Goyen HaKodesh, Rav Moshe Shinever. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, when they finished reading the parashas of the Hakedah, in the words ve'atachash ve'es macha, hayugam came makim b'yedayim, they would hit on their table with their hands. The Chassidim say that the pshat of this kavanah for this pasuk is that in the Svarim HaKadoshim there's a remez of this on Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because the word tachash is the Rashi Tevis, the first letters of Tiku Chodesh Shofar. You should blow the shofar in this month. So that's a remez to Rosh Hashanah. So Tachash is Taf Ches Shin, and Tiku Chodesh Shofar is Taf Ches Shin. Umacha Mem Ayin Chafei is Rashi Tevis Meloich Al Kol HaOilam. Oh wow, yeah, fits in. So that's what they would do. There's another story. I wish I could find it, mamash, right now. When the Shinever read the Torah, it would get very, very wild. It says over here. I'm trying to find it over here. When he was reading the here it is. When the Shinever read the Torah, a lot of wild things happened over here. So it says in the Sefer Nefloim Masecha, it brings edus from the Goyen HaKodesh of Shlomo Yehuda Weinberger, who was the Av Beis Din Kodesh Bagad Migdolei Chassidei Sanz v'Shinever. There's like all these names. Shesiper Shepam Hoya beParshas Yisro Eitzel Harav Kodesh Mishinever. One time he was by the Shinever Rav on Parshas Yisro. Harav Kodesh Hoya Abal Koreh Midei Shabbos b'Shabbos Kidua. And the Shinever used to read. He was the person who actually leaned. And when he got to the pasuk, Anochi Hashem Elokecha Tza'ak B'Kol Rash Godol, he screamed out in a very loud, wild voice, and he scratched his head, and he hit his head or scratched his head in great strength, very hard, because of this hislavus, and he ripped all the skin from his skull off. Yeah. V'shasami men dam rav, and a lot of blood poured out from him. V'hoya machze noira umavil, and this was a very fearful and scary sight that they saw. And they saw mamish by him his pashtus hagashmius. But yeah, that's a pretty wild situation over here, that he would do that. Anyway, back to the regular programming. It says over here, so that's what they would do by Kriyas Torah. On the first night of Rosh Hashanah, the Shinever said, b'shem his father, the Baal Divrei Chaim, Harav HaKodesh, that the Rav HaKodesh of Rav Naftali of Ropshitz, the Ropshitzer, I think, Hoya Mizamer Ata Neglesa B'Pesach, he would sing Ata Neglesa B'Pesach, which is Ata Neglesa is from Rosh Hashanah, Anu Nizamer Echad Miyadea B'Rosh Hashanah, and we sing the song Echad Miyadea, which is from Pesach, on Rosh Hashanah. And also the Shinever did that. V'Omar Daha Shaykh to Rosh Hashanah, and it's also Shaykh to Rosh Hashanah. The song Echad Miyadeh is Shaykh to Rosh Hashanah. The Rosh Hashanah Ha'ikr La'am Lechaboyer Yisbarach Shemaim, because on Rosh Hashanah the Ikr is to make Hashem the king. That's it. The Ikr on Rosh Hashanah is to make Hashem the king, the Melech. V'Zeu Echad Elokeinu Shabbat Shemaim V'Aretz, and he's only one God in the world. So that's like Echad Miyadeh. So there's inyanim to connect them from Pesach to Rosh Hashanah. It's all one. Hashem is one.
It's 11 o'clock.
Let's go a little more. Two more things over here. The Moran of Shinever would dip the challah in honey from Rosh Hashanah until Shabbos Bereshis. So we're going to do that also. A little Shinev too. Pam b'Shabbos Shuva Eitzel Shulchanei Shel Moran Mikolshitz. One time on Shabbos, they were sitting by the table of the Moran of Kolshitz. This is like he was something to do with Shinev afterwards. The Kolshitzer. Hisvachu ziknei chsidim as a menig litbo sachala b'dvash gam b'Shabbos tshuva. And the chsidim were arguing if the minhag was to also toivel the challah in the dvash also on Shabbos tshuva. And this Maran of Kolshit said, "Be'esis tachlu zikeni Maran Shinever." Sorry, the Kolshitzer is the Shinever's grandson. Yeah, I should have known that. Be'esis tachlu zikeni Maran Shinever Hayisi ben Gud Dalet Shana v'Shisha Chadashim. I was 14 years old and 6 months when the Shinever died, and I don't remember that the Shinever toivel the challah, dipped the challah in the honey b'Shabbos tshuva. But l'maisa, the Kolshitzer dipped the challah in the honey. That's how most Chassidic stories end off, by the way. Like, we don't really know, but let's just do it anyway. So it's all good, because why not? Just dip the challah in the honey. It's awesome. I love that stuff. Okay. Last one. Minhagoi Shamaran, the Baal Divrei Chaim, that he would not say Lamnatseach Livnei Koirach before Tkiyah Shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Right? You say Lamnatseach 7 times before hearing the shofar, but the Baal Divrei Chaim did not say that. And his son, the Divrei Yechezkel, who we're talking about, after his father died, and he became like his own rebbe, whatever, with his chassidim, he said, "Tamatzeach lifnei tkiyah shofar," and all the chassidim were like, "Yo, what are you doing? You know, your father didn't do it." And the Shinover said, and he knew that they were confused about it. So after, by the meal, he spoke about it. He said that this is very cool. He says that the world thinks that my father had some svara not to say Lamnatzeach, but the truth is that he did not. The reason why my father did not say Lamnatzeach is because my father knew exactly when the Eis Ratzon was Litkoya Shofar, that the Satan would not be able to be Mekatrig on it, Chas v'Shalom. Right? The Divrei Chaim knew that he knew how to calculate the exact second that when he blows a shofar, that the Satan would not get involved with his shofar blowing. So therefore, he made himself go fast, ma'oid, to blow the shofar, ba'oid serega v'lo yachol lahamtin klum. He wasn't able to wait at all. L'chein lo yamar shum mizmar, right? And he therefore didn't say any mizmar because he had to be ready. And if he was saying a mizmar, he couldn't be ready. There was a few times that he was standing in the Pesach Beis HaMedrash, like just stam, and then all of a sudden he would just start saying the brachas, because he would get to the shulchan, because he knew right then that that's when he had to blow the shofar. That is a little bit about the Shinover, about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah. And is there any little cute little things over here we could say over here? Alright, that's it basically for today. So yeah, so that's the story, the Shinever today, and I hope you guys enjoy all the videos, and keep sharing, keep watching, and we're going to keep on continuing, just saying good things only.